Welcome to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. I'm Bernie Flowers, one of Uncle Sam's wayward sons. I intend to talk about important topics every week in hopes of helping to improve our country and our way of life. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe as we try to defend and protect America's middle class. So now, let's get started. Today, I want to talk about Robert Kennedy Jr.'s potential role as the new Secretary of Health and Human Services under Donald J. Trump. Of all Trump's nominations, this may very well be the most important one. This move will affect the future of healthcare in America. I believe that RFK Jr. will be the disruptive force that we need to change healthcare in this country. And yes, the political establishment will fight the new changes. However, I truly believe that RFK Jr. will help make America healthy again. So, let's start. After the 2024 election, it was announced by President Trump that he had chosen RFK Jr. to serve as the next Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They call him HHS. Now, if you're not familiar with HHS, this is one of the largest federal departments. It has a budget of $1.7 trillion. I said trillion. It has 80,000 employees, and they oversee everything from disease prevention to the safety of our food, to the safety of our drugs, and to the safety of our vaccines. Let's recap the agencies under HHS. Now, you got the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health. You got the Surgeon General, the Office of Global Affairs. You got the National Public Health Service, the National Institutes of Health, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the Indian Health Service. You got the Food and Drug Administration, and you got the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. You've got the Health and Resources Services Administration, and you've also got the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. You've got the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, and also the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. That's a lot. President Trump reportedly told Kennedy that he could go wild on healthcare. Now, RFK's ideas about public health are considered to be radical, and they will change the status quo, and I hope they will bring needed change. In his statement responding to the nomination, RFK Jr. said that his goal was to bring together the greatest minds in science, medicine, and industry, and government to end the chronic disease epidemic and to clean up corruption in healthcare agencies. Now, that's a tall order, but RFK Jr. is known for his ambition and for his willingness to challenge powerful industries. His stance on these agencies is clear. He wants to tear down the veil of secrecy and dishonesty, and in his view, that's hindered transparency in public health. He's looking to combat groupthink and undo corporate influence. It's a direct challenge to the deeply rooted ties between Big Pharma, the food industry, and U.S. government health policies. RFK Jr. has gone as far to say that the current healthcare system, especially during COVID, has caused us harm. He disapproves of lockdowns, he disapproves of school closures, and he disapproves of vaccine mandates. He calls these policies anti-science. It's safe to say that he's not afraid to ruffle some feathers, and that is exactly what we need. Now, let's dig deeper into what I think is really driving RFK's vision. His movement is called Make America Healthy Again. This initiative, which Kennedy supports, takes aim at what it sees as a system that profits off keeping Americans sick, especially children. RFK Jr. has been outspoken about the power of Big Pharma and the food industry in shaping Americans' healthcare system. He points out that the U.S. is just 4% of the world's population, but it accounts for 70% of global pharmaceutical profits. Did you hear me? 70%. And yet we're number 60 on the list of life expectancy. 60th. That is not cool. Kennedy has been vocal about the role that ultra-processed foods play in America's growing chronic disease epidemic. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, these are all on the rise. And RFK Jr. argues that the corporate food industry and government policies are to blame. According to studies, Americans' caloric intake has risen over 1,000 calories since 1970. But most of that increase comes from ultra-processed food. He's not just talking about better food choices. He's talking about overhauling the entire food system. Now, here's where things get interesting. Kennedy has suggested a free market approach to food regulation, which would mean reducing government oversight and potentially dismantling agencies like the FDA. For many, this could be very, very scary. After all, the Food and Drug Administration is supposed to protect us from unsafe food additives and pesticides. But for RFK Jr., the FDA and other health agencies are part of the problem. They are captured by corporate interests that prioritize profits over public health. So, if he's given the green light to go wild, as Trump says, we could see some sweeping changes, including proper regulation on food additives and a focus on empowering local communities to take control of their own health. There's also the issue of corporate capture. RFK Jr. believes that the pharmaceutical companies, big agriculture, and even international organizations like the World Economic Forum have gone far too far in public health policy. They have too much influence. He wants to break those ties and return to a system where decisions are based on real science and not just corporate lobbyists and global elites. Many of RFK's ideas are being met with skepticism, especially from those who fear deregulation could reduce corporate profits. But at the same time, there's a growing movement, especially in conservative circles, that sees RFK Jr. as a hero. He's a fighter who's willing to take on the biggest interests in American healthcare. Whether it's tackling obesity or rethinking how we regulate food or pushing back against the globalists, RFK Jr. is positioning himself as a disruptor in the healthcare establishment. As we see, healthcare isn't just about science. It's about politics, values, and competing interests. RFK Jr. brings a unique perspective to the table, one that could very well reshape the future of healthcare in America. So do you think that RFK Jr.'s proposals will lead to a healthier America? I'd love to hear what you have to say. So if you get a chance, send me a comment. Reach out to me on social media. Otherwise, thanks for listening and allowing me to say what's on my mind. Well, that's about it for now. This has been the Loyal Opposition Podcast, produced in association with Fallback Productions and Veterans for America First. Please like, share, and subscribe as we try to grow the channel and protect America's middle class. Be sure to get your copy of my book, Black Values Matter, available as an ebook on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. And also, remember, it's okay to disagree. But if we want our country to prosper, we must insist on unity, transparency, and civility for ourselves and for our fellow citizens. Thanks for listening to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. We'll see you next week.